Hi and welcome back to another video with Scruffy Tales, and yeah, let's return to Ukraine. In today's video we will take a look at the road ahead, what Ukraine is facing on the battlefield and what they will face the further they push into Russian occupied territory. And yeah, they have a tough fight ahead of them. Let's begin with taking a look at the objective, what Ukraine wants to achieve and what they have to overcome to achieve it. Right, so here we have a map of the southern front. I've marked where Ukraine appears to be making the main push, and also marked Mariupol, Tokmak, Volodar, the important cities and towns in the area. And we will focus on the Ukrainian push in the center there with the blue arrows. Take note of the town they're attacking from, Velika Novosika. And yeah, let's head on over to the next map. Here we have a map detailing the Russian trench works, their defensive lines where they have dug trenches, set up dragon teeth to prevent armored vehicles from advancing, minefields and stuff like that. I mean, take a look. They have fortified the region for close to a year, and it's yeah, you can just by looking at this map, you know Ukraine is in for one hell of a fight. And also, as we can see, Velika Novosika, that is where they are attacking, and just south of that town is where the front line currently is. That is where they are fighting, and you can tell that it's quite a ways from the actual Russian defensive line. Like I mentioned in a previous video, this allows the Russians to find out where Ukraine is attacking so they can allocate manpower as needed before Ukraine reaches the main defenses. And so yeah, Ukraine has quite a ways to go. And move on to the next map. So why is Ukraine attacking where they are attacking out of Velika Novosika? Well, Ukraine needs to reach the Sea of Azov, as we can see in the south end of the map here. They need to do this to cut off Russian supplies and reinforcements going west, so Ukraine can then focus on defeating all the Russian troops trapped in the west. And in order to do that, they have to have the logistical and transportation capabilities. That means roads. They need to secure roads in order to head south. That's just the way it is. And as you can see, to the west, Russia has massive fortifications, 2 or 3 lines of fortifications in place, defenses in place. Just basically a suicide trying to go through there. But as I've marked on the map, there is one road going straight south, and that's what my line and my arrow is following. And it also goes through an area where Russia doesn't have the same amount of defenses. As you can tell, if Ukraine pushes through here and follows that road south, there isn't that much Russia can do to prevent it from happening. So this is what Ukraine is after. Ukraine wants to follow this road south and secure territory as they go along, and then reach the coastline, and then they have succeeded with their objectives. The problem is the Russian defenses, and we're going to take a closer look at those right now. So here we are a bit more zoomed in. We can see Velika Novosika in the north and the 2 main points of attack that Ukraine are following. And we can also see, as I marked with the arrow, where this main road that Ukraine wants is heading, as it's going south along a river. And you can tell that Russia knew that this was a possibility. They knew that Ukraine could try and achieve this. As you can see where I have marked a cluster of defenses and fortifications. Right, they have fortified that stretch of road around the town of, let's see if I can pronounce this, Novopetrivka. All right, Novopetrivka. So Russia is prepared for this, right? Russian generals, savage as they may be, they aren't stupid. They know what they're doing. So they have fortified in advance this weak point. And they know that if Ukraine gets access to this road, Ukraine can bypass Russian forces, Russian defenses, and can actually start maneuver warfare, which Russia is monstrously crap at. If Ukraine can begin maneuver warfare, Russia loses. So the generals realized this and they fortified this important stretch of road. And as we can see, as we zoom in even further, we have I have marked Makarivka as being in the control of Ukraine. That's the latest information we've gotten from the front, that the town up north here on the map, Makarivka, is in Ukrainian control. So what does Ukraine need to do? Well, they need to secure the next couple of towns, Staromayorsk, Savitne, and Staromlynivka. And then they will hit the Russian main defensive line. And it's a tough one. If we take a look to the west, we have Lyubimivka and Orlinske being fortified. And then you have the road and the string of towns of Heroivka, Yalinske, Novopetrivka, Malye Kernenchik, and eventually Krasnopolyana. Fortified urban settings, fortified tree lines and hedgerows and what have you. There's going to be mines all over the place. This is going to be terrible. There is, however, as you can see, I've marked an arrow going in between it all, because that is obviously a weak point. There's not enough fortifications there to hold off an attack. Ukraine could potentially, if they attack the Russian line and tie up forces, Ukraine could forcefully push down the center here where Russia is the weakest, right? Because that is what the map is telling us. There is just one problem with that, and I'll show that right now. All right, here we go. The red lines are Russian defenses. I have marked the Russian towns that are part of these main strong points, and also marked where off to the southeast, where Russia has the main concentration of fortifications. So they're going to use the towns of Herivka and Novopetrivka as natural obstacles, towns that they will defend. And if Ukraine gets through those two towns, it's going to be hellish to secure those two towns. Then Ukraine will hit the main Russian fortifications along that small stretch of road. So following that road, as you can tell, there's first a defensive line, then there's Herivka town, then the town of Novopetrivka, and after that, the real fortified positions emerge. So, yeah, Ukraine is in for one hell of a fight following that road. And if you take a look to the west, well, you have Orlinske and having a defensive line behind it. Again, the town is used as a solid piece of fortification. And there's even a smaller defensive line to the north around Volodne. So, yeah, following the roads, which Ukraine needs these roads, because that is where they will send in reinforcements. That is where they will send in logistics, ammunition, food, supplies, wounded, back and forth The roads are important. That is why Russia has secured these roads. And here we also see that weak point in the Russian defenses in the middle. Can Ukraine exploit this weakness? I'm not so sure. It's farmland, miles and miles upon farmland. Sure, you have the lanes here, 3 lines, and what have you, that boxes in each field. But still, it's wide open spaces, and the 3 lines, they're only so wide that you can't hide in them. So if you manage to secure a 3 line, then Russia can just bombard that piece of land that you're hiding in, and you're dead. And then you have to cross these wide open fields that are most likely mined to hell and back, and it's gonna blow you up to kingdom come. And then you got covering fields of fire from anti-tank missiles and what have you. Going down that center is most likely a death sentence. Unfortunately, Ukraine will be forced to follow the roads, be forced to follow the river. There's a river here. That's why we have all these towns. They are actually following this river. And so this river with the roads and the towns is where Ukraine will be forced to attack in order to have some form of cover. They are going to be funneled down that narrow lane towards Herivka and Novopetrivka, and then the proper fortifications. And yeah, they're going to be facing artillery, they're going to be facing mortars, it's going to be mines all over the place. When Ukraine has taken the towns up north here, Savitne, Basania, and Staromlivnivka, that's only the beginning. The real fight begins after that. And we are going to see a lot of Russian propaganda showing all the destroyed vehicles as this fight begins. Trust me. So that was what Ukraine needs to achieve in order to reach their objectives of reaching the Sea of Azov. As you can tell, Russia's prepared for this for a long time. Ukraine is in for one tough fight. And Jesus Christ, we are going to see a lot of dead Ukrainians and a lot of destroyed vehicles on pro-Russian media channels. I can guarantee it. But even before they even reach that point, they're still fighting on the actual front line, where Russia is trying to hold them back. And we're going to take a look at those maps as well. So here we have the front, the actual front line where Russian and Ukrainian forces are clashing. And we have the town of Makarivka that has been confirmed being in Ukrainian control, liberated by the Ukrainian forces. And as you take a look at the map, Ukraine has only so many options. There's this lane that I marked with blue arrows following the roads where you have settlements, a river, you have greenery, forest, possibly even small tiny valley or whatever you want to call it, where the river runs. So that's where Ukraine can find cover, and that is where they can move and operate. As soon as they deviate from this lane, they end up in wide open farmland, where you have minefields, where you have artillery strikes, mortar strikes, where ATGMs have free line of sight and can kill vehicles at 1 or 2 miles out. Ukraine only has so many options here, and 90% of those options are following into that narrow lane. If they're going to go out on the fields, well, you can see the lines in the fields. Those are the 3 lines that we also often have seen Russia trying to advance along when they've attacked Bakhmut and Volodar. So it's now the reverse. Ukraine, if they want to go out on the flanks, Ukraine will have to utilize these narrow tree lines, and that makes it so easy for Russia to call in artillery and just obliterate a stretch of woodland, basically, where you might have, I don't know, 50 or 100 Ukrainians trying to hide. And yeah, now Ukraine has basically, like I said, 90% of their choices involve going south into that lane. They are being funneled by the terrain, by the roads and towns to follow this river. And yeah, it's easy for Russia to just direct artillery into that lane, isn't it? It's easy for Russia to predict where Ukraine might come from. These roads are going to be covered by machine guns and anti-tank mines and anti-tank guided missiles and what have you. And yeah, Ukraine has only one choice. They are going to have to headbutt their way through the Russian lines down this lane. And taking a look at the second point of attack, it's basically even worse. Farmland as far as the eye can see, and Ukraine has two rivers to follow that offers woods, greenery, and what have you, that provides cover and that allows Ukraine to advance without getting sniped by anti-tank missiles, without getting artillery perfectly guided onto their heads. But I mean, even if it provides cover, it's two narrow lanes that Russia already has predicted where Ukraine will be moving through, right? So if Ukraine is going to take the town here of Priyutne, I mean, we're going to cross the farmland. Again, mines, anti-tank missiles, artillery. Are they going to go through these narrow lanes where they have cover? Well, then Russia just aims all artillery into those narrow lanes and they can kill hordes of Ukrainian troops. This lane of attack it's difficult, let's put it that way. So what can these two points of attacks achieve? Well, Ukraine can encircle the town and area around Rivnopil and force Russians to withdraw or force them to surrender. And that would be a huge territorial gain for Ukraine, a massive success. If they push through Makarivka, as we can see here, or if they reach Priyutne, as they appear to be trying to do. So that appears to be what Ukraine wants to do at the moment, to secure this large piece of territory around the town of Rivnopil before that main push along the road towards Heorivka, where all the defenses are located. And let's take a closer look here at the terrain surrounding this road and this river where Ukraine attempts to advance along. You have Makarivka up in the north, Heorivka in the south, Orlinsk in the south, and we remember where all the defenses were located, right? Southeast of Heorivka, slightly south of Orlinsk, Volodne had some defenses, and you had just outside of Klyuchove, you had some defensive works as well. So yeah, Ukraine has this, again, this narrow lane following the roads, following the river, following the woods and the towns south. Deviate from that lane, you end up in open farmland where it is so easy to call in artillery, so easy to snipe you with anti-tank missiles, so easy to spot you with drones, like Ukraine has proven for a year. And So yeah, they can't maneuver this. They can't maneuver yet because all of this is basically, we are basically at the moment looking at one giant minefield that is supported by anti-tank guided missiles with 3 lanes of fire. So Ukraine has to move down this lane along the roads and the towns and just smash through as best they can the Russian defenses. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take weeks. It's going to take weeks. But once they are through, that's when they can speed things up and start using this wide open terrain to their advantage instead. Because there won't be as many mines behind the Russian lines. So there's going to be minefields, but not as many. And once they get through all of that, then they can start maneuvering. Then they can start using these wide open fields to advance long distances and outmaneuver the Russians. But at the moment, now these open fields are unfortunately working in Russia's favor. So yeah, prepare for horrendous casualties for Ukraine. And yeah, it's I'm just looking at this map and it's gonna, Jesus Christ, it's gonna be one tough fight. That will have to be it for now, and bit of a doom and gloom video. Maybe. No, I don't think so. I'm just pointing out that Ukraine is in for one hell of a fight. It's a fight they can win, but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be really, really tough, but they can still win it. They just need to get through these Russian defenses, and they've picked the best spot. Looking to the west, Russian defenses are too well designed. They're too well built. There's just no way you can go through there. And going east, well, you have the city of Donetsk. It's a fortress by now, and it's surrounded by even more fortifications. So really, this point of where they've attacked is really only the good place to do it. So yeah, it's one hell of a fight, but I'm confident they will pull through. And once they get through the Russian lines, then Russia is lost. They can't keep up with Ukraine and Western vehicles in maneuver warfare. And Russia knows it. Russia knows it. I think if Ukraine breaks through the lines, Russia will begin to fall back because they don't know how to maneuver. So they will just have to fall back and try and dig in yet again. And yeah. Well, that's it. I can't sit here and ramble. See you around. See you in the next one. And as always, gå på marsch, Ukraine. Give them hell.